Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
There'll be a brief ad at the end of this video. Joseph sent me a note about a story in thesun.com. And, homeowners associations are one of those groups that we love to talk about here on this channel. And they popped up in the news again. The headline here is, my $270,000 home was auctioned without my consent for $19,000. And it all stemmed from a disputed $150 payment with the homeowners association. So the couple and the HOA later sat down, negotiated this, and resolved it in such a way that these people got to keep their home. But it was still an ugly situation. It took a long time to resolve. Elisabetta Ranks-Bergage wrote that, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, but a homeowner had their property sold at auction without their consent over dispute for a few $100s. It started on a $150 payment. It's a couple in Riverview, Florida, which is outside of Tampa. And the HOA put a lien on their property because of the alleged unpaid annual association fee. So it costs $150 a year to stay a member of the association, but you can't leave. You can check out, but you can't leave. And so you got to pay that $150. So they purchased the home in 2005, and back then it cost them $270. But the HOA said in 2013 that you guys missed a payment back in 2009, which makes you wonder why it would have taken them 4 years to figure that out. And I can tell you, I mentioned before that I was actually in a condominium at one point, and the condo board's a lot like an HOA. A lot of the parallels are more than anything. There's very few dissimilarities. So if someone didn't pay their dues, we knew it. And we would send them a note saying, hey, you didn't pay your dues. We wouldn't wait 4 years to do it. So that's one of the first issues here. So the payment was initially $150, but because it wasn't paid on time, and then there's late fees and double secret probation fees, it snowballed into $3,000. $3,000. So there's a dispute going on. HOA says, you owe us money. It started out at $150, but now it's three grand. And the homeowner's saying, are you sure about that? So the Rivercrest Community Association said the fee was not paid, but the couple had a canceled check that they claimed was proof of their attempt to pay, according to the Tampa Bay Times. The question is, what was the check for, how much, and when was it tendered? Because obviously, if late fees had been tacked on, and then you gave them a $150 check, that wouldn't take care of it. So at that point, a lien was placed on the home. Now, keep in mind that in most places, a lien can be placed on a property by a homeowner association if the homeowner fails to pay their dues, attorney fees, or fines that have been levied by the association. The house was then put up for auction to recover the $3,000 that was owed the association and was allegedly sold for $19,000. $19,000. Now, I'll have people ask this question, so I'm going to tell you that if they auction your house off at one of these auctions, if you own it free and clear, the person who bought your property would then also own it free and clear. However, if you've got a lien on the property, a bank holds a mortgage on it, then, of course, the bank will get taken care of before the second person, most likely. So if there was a mortgage on this property, the bank would step in and go, hey, I'm glad somebody coughed up 19 grand to buy this property, but we still have a mortgage on it. And so they would be able to stand in the way of at least that portion of it. But it might not help you get your house back. But so the woman here says you have a company that comes in and says, let's just take your house away. It's not right. There's no compassion. It's not morally right. Now, a judge had actually permitted this to happen. So this was done with the court's cooperation. Then the court was later asked to set the sale aside after the HOA and the family entered into negotiations and then mediation, and the parties agreed to settle their case. So they settled the case, and the settlement appears to be that one end of it is these people get to keep their house. So they're able to keep their house, but they had to pay $3,500. So they had to pay presumably the original money plus attorney fees, court costs, and like I said, some double secret probation fees. As part of the settlement, the couple also agreed that they had failed to submit their annual dues payment after they were due. So they agreed to that. Now, you'll notice they're talking about the language, they put it in quotes, and it appears that they're doing that because of the fact that they don't want an argument to break out later about why you guys settled. So it's kind of like a plea agreement. The settlement also added that they agreed that they later submitted partial payments and never submitted any payment for the penalties or court costs and attorney fees incurred by the association due to the continuing delinquency. And the parties agreed to not talk to the press about the settlement. So I'm not quite sure how the settlement became public. Somebody gave it to the press, or the press found a copy someplace. Meanwhile, the Sun, that's who I got the story from, has reached out to the HOA's attorney to see if they have comment. Similar cases have been previously reported. One homeowner was kicked out of her home by her HOA despite making her mortgage payments. And I'm not sure that's a kind of a misinterpretation here, because mortgage payments are what would get the bank to come after you. HOA will come after you for unpaid fees, dues, or if you're in violation and you get penalties assessed. So one woman said she was handed an eviction notice after a foreclosure, and she had faced some financial hardships at the time, but said she was surprised to receive the letter. I'm like, okay, I worked something out with a mortgage company, and that's who I would think would be able to foreclose. I had no idea that an HOA could foreclose on you. So the other woman in the story here got a notice of foreclosure and assumed it was with the bank, and was shocked to discover it was with the HOA. And I've mentioned this before, that in most states, HOAs are not heavily regulated, and they exist since the beginning of time on a piece of property. So what usually happens where an HOA comes from is that there's a big piece of vacant land and a developer buys it. He goes, I'm going to drop in 100 homes here. I'm going to put in the roads, the sewers, the water, the electrical, all the homes, sell the homes. And what often happens is, to make it easier for there to be maintenance on the roads and the common elements, the developer will create an HOA, and each person who buys into that development is told when they buy the property, there's a thing right in their deed that says, this is in an HOA, see the bylaws to understand what you got to do. And so as the development gets developed, eventually it's done and it's filled with houses. And if the developer did this right, all the houses were sold. And all these people now belong to an HOA. And the HOA, like I said, can maintain the roads, the common elements. There might be some common elements, like maybe a park in the middle or something. And so I've had people say, but Steve, why would people do that? Well, the alternative to that would be for a developer to come in and go, we want to build 100 homes here. And let's suppose this is inside a city. They got to go to the city and go, will you put a road in here for us to build homes? And the city's going to go, no, we haven't got the money for that. Put in your own road and do an HOA. Now, if you buy a piece of property that's already on a road, you can build a home there, not worry about building your own road. But quite often, big developments need their own roads and sidewalks and common areas. And so the HOAs are done to do that. And so I've talked to a lot of people in HOAs where the HOA is just this organization that oversees the common elements, collects a little bit of money, lays low, doesn't cause any troubles. I've also talked to people who said things like, I've got a privacy fence in my backyard that's 8 feet high. It was there when I bought the home. And 3 years after I bought my home, they sent me a notice that, hey, there's a shed in your backyard that violates our rules. And the shed can't be seen from the road. It can only be seen from inside the yard. It was there when we moved in. So one, how did they see it? And two, really? Like we're in violation because there's a shed on our property that was there when we moved in? And I've also heard of HOAs doing things like controlling what color the drapes are inside your house if they can be seen from the outside through the windows. So HOAs can be all over the board on these things. And I've talked to a lot of people who tell me that they actually like their HOAs. So I don't want to give you the impression that all HOAs are evil organizations. What happens, however, is there are some people who, for whatever reason, get inspired to get on an HOA because they kind of want to tell their neighbors how to live. And it happens. It happens. Next thing you know, the HOA is running rampant, going around and doing things like, hey, you've got a pot on your porch. It's got a plant in it. You can't have potted plants on your porch. What's wrong with you? Wait, you parked a car in front of your house overnight? You can't do that. Wait, you've got a car in your garage that's not plated. Well, you can't have an unregistered car on your property. And so some of the rules can seem crazy. And what also causes a problem is that the HOA, when you buy the property and you join it, they'll say, read the bylaws. And many people don't. And many people will actually say, I never saw I didn't know they existed. And so if you bought into a place that's got an HOA, read the bylaws. And if you didn't have a chance to do that, you should at least get a copy of them and read them. And I've had people tell me that they've read their bylaws and like, oh my gosh, if they enforce these, we'd all be in trouble. But luckily, the board's not crazy. So it can go both ways. But here, the association levied a fine against these people for not paying their association fee. It started out at $150. Then there's late fees and legal fees and whatever other fees there are. And it starts piling up. And the only way you can make that stop is to pay it. Now, I can tell you that if you don't pay it in most states, they can lien your property. They can say this money now becomes a lien against this property. And I've had people say, well, Steve, I don't care. I'll never sell. I'll never sell. Well, in many places, they can foreclose on you to force you to pay them. And they'll take it out of your home if they have to. There probably are states where they can't do that, but that's the concern. But number two, keep in mind that because they're allowed to do that, and it's written into a contract that is part of what you agreed to when you bought your house, there's not much of a defense. You can't say, I just decided I want it out. No, that's not how it works. It's not how it works. So you got to pay it to make it go away. So when these different people they interviewed said, I didn't know that anybody could foreclose on my house other than the mortgage holder. Well, the mortgage holder will be interested in what happens to your house, but just so long as they get their money. So if there's a lien on the house with a mortgage company, right, then if somebody forecloses, the mortgage company's going to go, hey, we get paid too. We get paid too. But that won't necessarily put the house back in your hands. Now here they worked out a deal, and they managed to do it where these people got their home back, and they paid the fees, and the fees wound up being $3,500 all told. And so they had to pay all that money to get this back, and they also had to sign documents admitting all kinds of things they claim they did, which they might not have, you don't know. But Joseph, thanks for sending that. Again, if you're buying property, consider whether it's in an HOA and understand what that means. And if you're in an HOA right now, make sure you've read the bylaws. And if you don't have the bylaws, get a copy. So if you contact the HOA directly and say, hey, I'm just curious, can I get a copy of the bylaws? They should do that for you. That's something they shouldn't complain about because they want you to follow them. And if you don't have them, how can you follow them? So it's from thesun.com. Elizabetta Ranks Burgage wrote that. My $270,000 home was auctioned without my consent for $19,000. It all stemmed from a disputed $150 payment. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye. I told you there'd be a brief ad at the end of the video. Here we are. I'm here to talk to you about the Lumino toothbrush. Lumino toothbrush. And Lumino is a company founded by Dr. Karush Madahi, who's a very well-renowned dentist. And he was looking at the products that were out there that he could recommend to his patients. And he wasn't too crazy about it because he doesn't like things like, artificial dyes and harsh chemicals and so on. And so he started developing his own products. So he developed like Lumino whitening toothpaste and whitening strips and things of that nature. But he also developed this toothbrush, and this thing is really cool. First of all, it is pleasant to look at. It looks cool. If you're a gadget guy like I am, you look at it, you go, wow, this thing is neat. And then you go, wait a second. It's got no cord. How do you plug it in? Well, it's actually got this really cool charging base, okay? So the charging base plugs into a USB, so you get a block, put it in the wall. And then once every 5 or 6 weeks, you bring it over, stick it there, and it charges. And then you're good for another 6 weeks. I've charged this thing twice. I've never had it run out of electricity. I don't even know how long it lasts. But they say 6 weeks, and I believe them. So this is pretty cool. But it's also got several different speeds and settings where you can have it vibrate, and it oscillates, and there's all kinds of cool stuff. And you find a setting you like. I personally use the sensitive setting because I've got sensitive issues. And it's really, really cool. But I also like the fact I've tried to use other electric toothbrushes before, and they never quite worked for me. But this one, because of all the variety of settings and how comfortable it is to use and handle, it works really, really well. I like this. The head, this thing right here, actually comes off and is replaceable. And this is made entirely from renewable material. So the wooden part is bamboo. The bristles are made from castor oil. And so if this thing goes to a landfill, it's not going to hurt anybody. It's going to eventually just do whatever it's supposed to do because it's natural, right? And so the electric toothbrush is better than the analog toothbrush, when you're trying to do this. And I'd been using regular toothbrushes my entire life. I've tried electrics before, never quite got into them. And I'm not quite sure exactly why I could never, if you said, Steve, why didn't you ever use them before? I would try them and it just didn't feel right. And I'd go back to the other one. But the cool thing about this one is I've been using this and I actually find that it's substantially easier for me to use, but I get better results. So I've mentioned before, I've got all 4 of my wisdom teeth. And that's uncommon for a person of my age. And so for me to get back and actually get in there and clean them has always been a concern of mine. And I've had dentists actually say, how do you get back there? And I'm like, it's difficult. But with this, I can reach back in there and I know that I'm getting them clean. So I get better results. It's easier to use. It's extremely handy, for lack of a better word. So I really like the thing. I use it a lot. And like I said, it's got the induction charging system, which is the simplest thing I've ever used. Most things you have which are rechargeable have got a little recharging port on them. But of course, because it's a toothbrush, occasionally it will get wet. Turns out that's designed perfectly. So when he designed it, he looked into all of these things and managed to make it in such a way that it gets around every possible objection you could ever have to an electric toothbrush. So here's the deal. You can use the link below and you can get yourself $10 off your Lumino electric toothbrush on Amazon. So what the link is, it's an actual Amazon link. And you simply click on it, takes you to an Amazon page. So if you're like me and you already have an Amazon account, you can simply look at the page and work with it like any other product that you look at on Amazon. But there is a $10 off offer that's being made in conjunction with this ad on my channel. So when you go there and you're looking at it, read the reviews. Lumino's reviews are mind-blowing. People love this stuff. So read the reviews, read the description, look at the pictures, and if you order one, you'll get $10 off. And I'm going to let you know right now, I've done a few of these ads in the past, and I always tell people, if you buy a product that I've talked about on my program, I want you to give me feedback. I want you to let me know, did you like it? Did you not like it? Tell me everything. And I've heard nothing but positive feedback on Lumino and its products. So I like these people a lot. I've been using this stuff besides the toothbrush. I've been using the whitening strips. I've also been using the toothpaste. They also make mouthwash. They make all kinds of stuff. And it's all really, really good stuff. And it's all done, you can tell, it's been done by somebody who knows what they're doing and cares about what they're doing. So the Lumino toothbrush, today we're talking about this. The link below, click it, take a look at it on Amazon. And even if you're on the fence, just go look at it. Go look at it. You'll see what a cool product it is. So you can use my link to get $10 off your Lumino electric toothbrush on Amazon. And so check that out. I use mine every single day. Since I got it, I've been using it every single day. And you have to understand, I'm a guy, admittedly, who often lives in ruts. I like to think it's consistency, but when people look at me, they go, Steve, you're in another rut. You're in another rut. And so to get me to change my habits, to get me to change my behavior, sometimes it takes more than a nudge. And so the fact that I'm still using the Lumino toothbrush after all this time indicates that I've gotten out of the rut of using the analog toothbrush, and I'm using the space age Lumino toothbrush. So click on the link below. Get $10 off your Lumino toothbrush. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Sarcasm. It's how I hug.